Week 10 CFL betting picks and predictions coast to coast every single Tuesday right here on X and YouTube. I'm Andrew. I've got Bobby with me. And, we've made some profit, guys. We have made some money throughout the season. But the good news is, although we've got NFL X here, we've got college football starting soon, baseball in the second half of it. We're just getting started with this CFL season. Lots of time to cash a lot more tickets, Bobby, and I look forward to it. How is your week 9 and how you doing?
My week 9 was all right, and it's only because I sprinkle on these moneyline dogs. Got burned badly by Toronto, but maybe not if you look at how that game actually played out. 2-2, made a little bit, but I'm still doing okay. I'm doing better than anybody who's sponsored by DraftKings this week. I just was listening to Ross Tucker try and justify that winning tax they've implemented and saying things like, well, isn't everything going up in price, or do bettors even care? So they're basically saying the quiet part out loud. They think you're stupid. They're the ones being paid to encourage you to make bad bets, win less, lose more. And that's why there's people like us, men of the people, fighting for the good guys, fighting for the little guys, taking down these, for the most part, predatory sports books.
Yeah, I was just listening to a Wager Talk show, actually, and they were talking about that. And I never thought I would hear people say this, but they were giving out their opinion. It wasn't representative of Wager Talk, but they literally said, if you can bet elsewhere, do it. Avoid DraftKings right now. Not only do they already give you the worst lines usually, and they're late to update, they don't appeal to winning bettors. They'll limit you. Now they want to give you some surcharges. It's very weird. But my week 9, look, I'm trying to practice not complaining, which as sports bettors we find ourselves doing all the time. And I think that overall I should be happy. It was a 3-0-1 3-0-1 week for me in the CFL. And of course, you know what that 0-1 is. Not a loss, but a push, because I ended up releasing the 4 on the Argos game. So that's a tough one. It's one of those ones where you're leading all game. You think you have a rocking chair winner, and I think we got 1 point in the second half from the Argos. But we don't have just one. We have 2 games this week where we have rematches, home and homes, which is such a CFL thing. And here we are in week 10 with some opportunities. And what I love the most about this is that we get the chance to see, okay, how much do books care about home field advantage? How much do they care about what happened the week prior? We're going to find all those things out, and we have found a little bit of those things out with the CFL betting numbers. So maybe before we jump into the actual games, what are your thoughts on that as a whole? The fact that these CFL schedule makers, and obviously there's only 9 teams with these home and homes. Do you read too much into what happened the week prior? I know you're a numbers guy. How do you approach it?
Yeah, and I was just going to look into that. I was supposed to look into that this morning and did, because I know this has happened a few times already this year. I don't remember any teams that got beat down. Who do we have playing? Well, no, they didn't really get beat down. Toronto just collapsed completely. But Hamilton got beat down, right? So I don't know how that's affected for the rematch. It doesn't look like the lines have changed much since the look-aheads last week, other than the BC Edmonton game, obviously. But I was a little surprised that some of these numbers didn't adjust more. But that being said, I don't have a lot of action this week, which is weird because I was on every game last week myself. So there's not as much for home field anymore in the NFL, especially CFL. It wasn't really as much to begin with. So you should see kind of similar lines. These lines are moving like 3 points, so like 1.5 they're given for home field. Some teams have a little more than that, and other teams, I think that's spot on.
I think that when you look at these home and homes, a lot of the times you find yourselves looking at the road team just because of the the implied numbers there for the home field advantage. And like I keep talking about, how much can we even account for home field anymore? As I've mentioned a lot here on the show this season, how much does that matter? The home field advantage, and so when I look at the action that I have for this week, a lot of it is kind of based around trying not to overreact, trying to bet based on numbers. But at the end of the day, too, it's been one of those things I've noticed this season. And I noticed this last year too, and I'm sure you've noticed it as well, where at the start of the CFL season, everyone's excited. People that don't bet CFL, they're all over it, right? They're CFL experts for 5 or 6 weeks, and they kind of taper off when the NFL starts. They start prepping for college football. But one thing I've noticed, you're getting a lot of game day money come in, but there's no real money coming in. Like I remember week 1 and 2, I had one of my monitors with simply an odds board open just to watch the movement for Canadian football. And now I can confidently say there's not really going to be any movement until game day. So you don't really have to panic and rush to the window to get the bets in that you want, as long as you get them in before game day. Or in some instances, you can wait until game day, see what the move is, and bet against it, kind of like what I did there with Winnipeg, waiting to get the best number possible. Do you agree? I mean, it seems like right now, if you like something on Monday, it's going to be there for you on Wednesday. It just might not be there for you on Thursday, Friday, Saturday, Sunday.
Yeah, the lines have been pretty steady these last few weeks, and even the game day money, it's not as dramatic as it was the first few weeks of the season. So I was hoping there'd be a little more of it, because once I have my number, I'm gonna go against the money if it goes against me, right? So there's an opportunity to get some more value there, or to stay off games completely based on those game day moves. But yeah, I haven't, like Winnipeg kind of creeped up a little bit last week, but other than that, every line pretty much stayed the same. Toronto jumped right away, I think, on Monday, but other than that, everything was pretty consistent.
All right, well, let's not waste any time. You've got the Red Blacks jersey on. We'll find out if that means if you're on them or not. But most shops, like I said, haven't really moved. -1.5 home favorites is what I'm seeing at most spots here. Total 48.5 money line. -120, 125 favorites here for the Red Blacks. Coming off the bye week, what are your thoughts on this game overall?
All right, so I've swore off the Red Blacks in week 3, but last night I took them -1.5 here. You can actually get it at 1 at some spots here. The thing is, here we've got another quarterback situation with the Riders, another quarterback returning to practice. And last week we saw that the facts mattered, but nobody really reported on them except for French language media. So let's go through the facts again here, because nobody loves the facts more than me.
Okay.
Patterson took the first team reps in practice yesterday. Patterson said he was starting. There's a huge cap hit if Harris comes off that 6-game injured list a game early. All 6 games count towards the cap. So there's no real incentive to bring him back financially. They travel tomorrow, so their practices are done. So he's not walking through that. Trevor Harris isn't walking through that door on Thursday night, right? So despite some people, even this morning, some people are posting that, oh, he practiced. Yeah, he was at practice. But I think Patterson's still going to be in there. And Patterson, let's say what he is. We've said it every week. He can't really move the ball vertically. He's a good game manager. I'm confident where I have him rated in terms of CFL quarterbacks. And if you told the Riders that Harris would be back in a week, Harris would be out 6 weeks, and you go 3-3 without him, I think they'd be happy with that. Just kind of like Ottawa, or just kind of like Toronto is with Kelly being gone, right?
Yeah.
So that's the Riders situation. They're going to have Shea Patterson going on the road. Ottawa coming off their bye, their injury report is cleaning up. Lots of players in the secondary are coming back. It's fair to say they have a decent quarterback now, and as long as you're in the lead, you can't really make any bad decisions to screw with any people trying to make an informed decision about the spread. So, is Shea Patterson gonna torch all of these defensive backs that are returning? Probably not. Maybe just the one guy who gets torched every game so far this year. I think that defense is going to be a lot better. It's already been pretty good. I think they should be favored by more than a field goal. So that's why I like the Red Blacks off the bat. I can't even say it out properly because it's so uncomfortable for me to be on them. But I'm backing Bob Dice and the Red Blacks this week.
And worth mentioning as well about, you talk about the getting the facts right, and hats off to you for wanting to make sure, hey, I'm here to clear things. Trevor Harris, I thought you were going to mention this. He stirred the pot as well up on Instagram, because that Instagram post was going around X quite a bit, where he had like the clock emoji and, just teasing people. Maybe that was some mind games going into this week as well. But yeah, Trevor Harris getting in on the mix as well, saying, hey guys, maybe I'm coming around, or maybe he was just saying it's almost time for me to be back. But Bobby, we're head to head, man, starting this week off. So, one thing that I've done this year, which is so funny because you don't really catch yourself doing it in any other sport, any other league, I would even say, whether it is football or hockey, NBA. I've caught myself backing teams that I've faded the week prior. And if you look at the past few weeks, an example would be, for me, backing Hamilton on the highway to beat the Edmonton Elks, and the next week releasing a 5% top play on the Edmonton Elks to get the job done. And I've done it countless times throughout the year, where I'll back Montreal to get the job done. Then I bet Toronto to hand them their first win. Then the following week, I like Hamilton against Toronto. I don't want to say we flat spots, but I feel like I've had a good read on when some teams are going to find their regression. Now, there's no regression here, or no flat spot here for the Red Blacks, because they're off a bye. But then if we go down that avenue, how'd that bye week work for the BC Lions? Zilch, zero. How much do bye weeks matter in the CFL? Because I know that in the NFL, you can figure out some teams that are either good in their game before the bye or good after. Usually it's one or the other. But yeah, when I look at this matchup here, I think you're just going to get a really motivated Saskatchewan team that just got embarrassed against Trey Ford and Edmonton. They put up a 40-burger on them, made it look easy. The Edmonton defense played okay at some points, but really it didn't matter what the defense did, because Trey Ford, the running game, some of these players were able to get the job done over them. I think Saskatchewan will be motivated. And one thing you said, which is funny because it applies to both of our handicaps. What you said was about Ottawa: as long as they don't go down, or they don't, the game doesn't get out of hand, you trust them. And that's exactly the reason why I like Saskatchewan, is because when they get the lead, I don't think the Red Blacks can come back. The Red Blacks aren't good when they're uncomfortable. They're very good when they're comfortable. They have weapons. They got a guy that can, make the right decisions. Not the coach, but the quarterback. But overall, when I look at this team, I think even if they go down like 13-3 or something, I see them starting to force balls. I see them scrambling, the mental mistakes getting a little bit weaker. And, when I go through their schedule, I know, again, I always mention this, it's a 9-man league, but they beat the Stampeders. It was a real flat spot for the Stampeders, a lot of traveling for them. So 33-6, good for them there. Then they beat the Elks, not once, but twice in a row. Then they hand the Bombers their first win of the season. They lose 25-16. And at the time, the Bombers, like I mentioned, were winless. Then they barely scrape along and beat the Ticats, who at the time hadn't had their first win of the season. The game prior to that, they get blown out by the Alouettes. This team is the second place team in the East Division. Do they feel like they should be to you?
If you're trying to find good teams in the CFL in week 10 here, you're not going to get any help from me. Like, this is where I was making my power rankings like a normal person makes power rankings. I don't have one team right now better than an average team. I know that's kind of contradictory to say, but with all the quarterbacks out, Montreal, BC, Saskatchewan, Toronto, those are the good teams in the CFL. So I have Ottawa as a top 3 team in my power rankings this week, solely based on how many quarterbacks are out or injured, it's not saying that they're a bad team or not they're a good team. They aren't a good team, and they still aren't a good team. But at the end of the day, like, you're gonna have two bad teams playing each other here. I guess we got a first quarter bet going on here, because whoever takes the lead is who I'm going to trust throughout the rest of the game. But yeah, I can see, I'm not going to talk anybody out of a bet against the Red Blacks, because it's been very profitable the last few years. The only difference now is they've stopped the bleeding, and they have a decent quarterback.
Yeah, again, and there's going to be times where we're head to head. I do like it when we're on the same page, and that's happened more often than not. I guess the only thing for me here is that I'm in a position again where I have been a couple times this year, where, like I was with Edmonton last week, where you're betting on a team to do something they haven't been doing a lot, or betting against the team to do something they haven't been doing a lot. 5-2 straight up, 5-2 ATS. That's the run for the Red Blacks right now. The only thing I can hope for is some regression from this team. If they move on to be 6-2, and the thing is, it's not like it's ATS versus straight up, because it's pretty much a pick. Let's be honest. Like, the plus 1.5 can matter in the CFL. There's no denying it. But if they win the game, they're going to be they're not going to win by one. They're going to be ATS and straight up win again. So they're either going to be 6-2 ATS and straight up, or they're going to be 5-3. But it should be a real interesting one to see. And I'll make it clear, I wasn't banking on Harris. So when you called me out that time about Fajardo maybe coming back, this time I'm not banking on Harris. It
wasn't just you. It was everybody else. And this, at least, you saw Michael Ball say there's no way he's coming back. At least there's a few people on English X who agree with me this time, or at least are reporting the same thing, or relaying the reports, right? So and remember this, like, I think a few years ago, Sam Darnold had the Carolina Panthers 3-0, 4-0 to start the year. The record means nothing to us, and the record is not indicative of the team. If you have Winnipeg and Ottawa go head to head this week, I'd be on the Bombers, at least over a field goal.
And that's just the thing, is like last week, you and I both, we look at Winnipeg, and I think that if people are betting on standings, like we always joke around about the CFL releasing their power rankings, BC was the play. Everybody, and whenever I look at a number like that, the opener tells you a lot, right? With the BC one last week, that opener should not have been 3.5. But a guy I talk with all the time and do shows with, Jeff Dawson, we talk CFL together. He's a big team totals guy. He always talks about the opening number. If the books liked BC, they wouldn't have opened at 3.5. It gets bigger. They get money coming in on BC. We get to jump in on Winnipeg at a nicer price at like plus, what was it, 5? That the biggest number it got to? Was that the highest number?
5, maybe. Yeah, 5.5, maybe. But yeah, it ballooned. But again, like we've been consistently higher on the Bombers. The books have been higher on the Bombers. And what do we all have in common? We can't afford to be saying stupid shit. Like, we're going to lose money if we do. We're not going to go back to work the next day.
And again, 48.5 being the total here. When I look at this Red Blacks team and I look at the Saskatchewan team, big part of my handicap last week betting on the Elks, they're dead last in passing yards allowed per game, 294.5. Right before them, though, being the Elks, BC, Hamilton, Toronto, Calgary, Ottawa, third ranked in the league, passing yards allowed. So either the regression's going to come, or they're going to continue to prove that, hey, it doesn't matter about our schedule. It matters just about some of the teams that they were able to stop. So it should be interesting. I do lean towards the over in that game, because I think a lot of my handicap is about Ottawa's defense regressing, as I don't think Saskatchewan's going to just absolutely stand still. We talked about the bend, don't break on my show with Jeff on last Friday, how Saskatchewan, one of the best teams as far as points allowed per game, Bobby, but yet they were the bottom team in the league as far as passing yards allowed per game. They pretty much said to teams, hey, you can get to our 20-yard line, go ahead, but then we're going to make you kick a field goal. And what happened to them against Edmonton was when Edmonton got to the 20-yard line, they scored 7. So it should be interesting. Would you say that you kind of lean towards the over too, or this is one that could go either way?
I think Saskatchewan is an over team in terms, especially with their defense. Like I said, I don't get it. I don't get why people think this is a good defense. Their defensive line is super banged up. Their pass defense has been terrible all year. But like you said, like that BC game, how many Sean Wade had 7 field goals or something, right? So
Yeah.
that you can't keep that up forever. Eventually, things are going to average out. The probabilities are going to dictate the score, and you can't keep holding teams to field goals like that all year. So I like the over from that point of view. Again, Ottawa has kind of had a banged up secondary. I don't know if there's got to be a couple of good guys coming back on that list. There's 4 of them coming back, so that should improve a little bit. But Drew Brown can move the ball. It's just a matter of how effective is this short passing game, this kind of West Coast offense that Shea Patterson's being managed in. How effective is that going to be?
Got to give a shout out to Tommy here. And I love the name Tommy Unders. Most people love betting overs. He's Tommy Unders, and he's in here with us every week, chatting with us. And one thing about him, I'll give him credit. He knows a lot of guys' names. He knows everyone. He's not just saying their O-line is injured. He's letting us know who they are, banged up right at the end of last week. So their O-line, and that's the thing. If Patterson has to scramble more, it's cause for concern. He's a guy that's going to sit there in the pocket, make the easy pass. So you make a really good point there, Tommy. We appreciate you being here with us. I think maybe we should try and get Tommy on the show by the end of the year, honestly. Maybe do some chat, get a triple box going, or do a Twitter Spaces, get Tommy's thoughts, because Bobby, he's been here every week with us, so got to appreciate that. Yeah.
He knows everybody, man. He's saying good stuff. He's not saying anything stupid. So nothing square from Tommy Anders.
Appreciate you, Tommy. Appreciate you. All right, let's jump into game number 2. Calgary, Toronto. Of course, this is one of the rematches. This is the game that drove both of you and I insane last week. So I led in with it, talking about the fact that how do you bet these games when teams are going back and forth from one, and especially when it's an out of conference game, as people would say in other leagues. And this is what it is here. This is a traveling situation. Obviously, both teams have to travel to get back to where they're playing. But we saw the number close and settle in at +4 for the road team, Toronto. Now they're -1 at the Green Book, we're seeing at least. What do you think about this number overall based on what you saw last week? It's implying, 3 to 4 point swing based on home field. How do you feel about this game?
I think the number itself, I think I downgraded Dukes a little bit more after that game. So you can't upgrade Calgary after that. If you were following anybody in the media watching that game, they were wondering like how Jake Mayer still has a job, and then he ends up bringing them back in the fourth quarter. So he's Mr. Inconsistent. 4 point swing going from Calgary to Toronto. 2 points, I guess, but I think some of that includes a downgrade of the Argos somewhat just due to Cam Dukes. Because look at what he's done. Like, when was the last time he had a good game? He was set up with great field position in that first half against Calgary. A first half that I didn't watch. I tuned in at halftime. I'm like, oh, this is great. Finally, a reverse Hamilton is happening here. But then you mentioned you thought it was going to be a rocking chair winner. You could tell it was a rocking chair loser. This game was slowly going to fall apart in front of us, and it did. He never moved the ball after that. So no good game there. The game before versus the Bombers, they only won because they got a pick 6 and had 4 fumbles. So he didn't help them much there. Ticats game before that, you were at it. Nick Arbuckle came in. So he played no role in that. In that game where I think they almost, I even forget, was it even a win for the Ticats? Did they hold on?
Yeah, they held on, but they barely did.
So you go back before that, like they beat the Alouettes without Cody Fajardo. They had 2 picks by Caleb Evans. I don't remember if he played well, but I looked up his stats. He's 16 for 20, for 131 and a touchdown. It's not that great.
Mm-hmm.
He had the Plinko game, 4 picks against Saskatchewan. He was yanked in Montreal the week before. So then finally we're at week 2 of the season against the Elks. That was his last good game. That was a long time ago. That was before the presidential debate. So he hasn't really proven himself to be a good quarterback for a while now. And I know, hey, we were the only people in the league on Cam Dukes before the season started, aside from the Toronto guys that have seen him play too.
Mm-hmm.
I'm not big on the Argos this week. Arbuckle, I don't know if he's going to play. He's no better. I think you might as well just try Brian Scott, because this is the same situation that the Riders are in. Like, if you told the Argos that they'd be 4-5 when Chad Kelly's going to come back, I think they'd take it. So nothing for me on this game. I think this line is right where it should be, around a pick. If it goes to 3 either way, I guess it's going to be one of those bowling shoe bets. If it's Toronto +3, I'm going to have to take it.
Mm-hmm.
But nothing right now. So hopefully some late line movement for here. But I think the Cam Dukes experiment is done. He's one of the better backup CFL quarterbacks, but he's not really going to make a difference in a game like he was the first couple of weeks of the year.
Tommy saying time for Toronto to start Brian Scott,
there
as
you go.
mentioned there. So he's right there with you on that. Sharing a lot of the same opinions as us.
It's not my burner account.
Yeah, it's you type in there. It's not even that. Tommy isn't a real guy there. all jokes aside. What was going to say there? Oh yeah, I always say, and every week I'm preaching this, Cam Dukes, 10-yard pass, 10-yard pass, 10-yard pass. But then what's funny, Bobby, is that every time I think he might have like a 50-50 clip when he does throw the deep ball, which is hilarious because he doesn't get the opportunity to do it very often. But if you take a look at some of the tape, whenever he throws deep, I'm like, oh, geez, man. And then he connects. But I feel like maybe that's because he doesn't do it very often and he's able to have success with it. I'm not really sure. I can't give you an answer for that. But you couldn't be more accurate with that. My question is this. Calgary has one of the worst rush defenses in the league, and yet Carey had 30 yards in that revenge game against his former team. Why did Toronto not run the ball as much, or do you think that they just got stopped? Calgary's rush defense has been better over the past few weeks. I think we can blame Cam Dukes, but I'm not. Don't worry. I'm not defending him. But I think the play calling I thought was a bit weird from Toronto in the second half.
Yeah.
There's players can lose you a game when you're up, but so can a coaching staff. I know that these guys are professionals. You don't need a psychologist in there to keep the team going. But there were rumors out there that apparently at halftime, Coach Dickinson said to his team at half for Calgary, if you guys want to play next week and be on the Calgary Stampeders, I need to I need to see what you guys have. Apparently he dropped a pretty good speech at halftime. Whatever speech he dropped was better than whatever speech was said in the Toronto locker room. And I'm sure you can agree with me on that.
Yeah. And we've seen a few of these games happen before. It was a week 1 when Edmonton kind of blew that big lead. There's been a few huge comebacks here. And I think it's coaches just not accepting that maybe the best move is to just kind of do nothing, just run the ball out, run the clock, just take the win. And some of these coaches just don't get that, unfortunately. So Toronto hasn't been as egregious on the bad decisions this year, so I'm not going to be too hard on them. But it wasn't even a tale of two halves. It was just a fourth quarter by the Stamps. So 1 point for the Argos in that entire second half. What are you going to do? Just take the L.
Yeah. I want to mention really quick that for anybody watching, of course, we do appreciate you guys. Leave a thumbs up, share on X, share it on YouTube to anybody looking to bet some CFL. We've made some money on this show, but if you're interested in my picks over at Wager Talk, we have a deal going right now. If you buy September and October, we're throwing in the remainder of August for free. So simple sales perspective would tell you the faster you buy, the more of August you'll get. If you're interested in the start of the NHL season, if you're interested in the start of the NFL season, some college football, some UFC from me, I'm very low volume in the MLB, but we're doing pretty well. Anybody watching right now, if you want the next 3 months of all of my favorite plays, You buy September and October. It's a special over at my page. You can see all the links below on the graphics there. You're going to get the remainder of August for free. So we always do these deals, and yet people will hop on board, Bobby, with like 10 days to go in August when the special has been the same. So for anybody out there interested in all of my plays, the sooner you buy September and October, the more of August you'll get. So that's the special I have going right now for anybody interested in this one. But my thoughts on this one, Bobby, might throw you off after everything we've just talked about. This is my over game of the week, actually. I like a lot of points in this one. I just think that a rule that I've created, and because I've been burnt so many times, and as sports bettors, we have to learn from our mistakes. Overs really only happen in the CFL when it takes two teams to tango. One team, trading points. Look at a lot of the blowouts in the CFL, and I've learned this in the NHL as well. When you've got a minus 300, Avalanche versus Sharks, totals at 6.5, guess what the game usually ends on? 4-2, 5-1, lands on 6, right? Happens to me all the time in the NHL. It's kind of like the team that's the worst team in the NHL tries to just play as much defense as possible, and, they might give up a few goals, but they're going to lose respectively. In the CFL, a lot of times these blowouts happen and one team carries the load. I mean, look at the Red Blacks Calgary game. I had a big play on the over in that game. Geez, if Calgary would have done anything for me in that game, I would have hit the over, right? I do think that Calgary and Toronto trade points in this game. I think you've got a Calgary that will realize they had a poor first half, and Toronto that will realize, what the hell did we do in the second half of that game? And so I think that a lot of people will say it's an opportunity for the defenses to go ahead and look at the film, because I'm a big believer that 1 week to the next, it's not about what you do at practice. It's about what you do in the film room from 1 week to the next. Whatever they're going to do at practice, they're not going to learn new schemes, I don't think, 1 week to the next. They're going to be able to pick up a few things in the film room. And I think it'll actually help the offenses, not as much the defenses. What was the final score of that one? I think it was, 24-21? Is that how it finished? I can't remember now at this point.
3 points. I know that.
Yeah, it was 3. Yeah, it was a 3 point, 27-23. 27-23.
4 points, yeah. It wasn't 3. 3 would have covered for me.
Yes, yeah, geez, my bad. So the reason why I like the over is number one, about trusting the opening number, right? So you look at that game, how it fizzled out in the second half, the way it slowed down, and yet the opener was 49 and a half. 50 seems to be the settled number. And I'll tell people, if you want, you're very adamant about telling people about key numbers for lines and sides. I'm going to tell people, get the 50 flat. The game finishes, 27-23, something like that. You're going to get the push. You don't want to be getting a 51 and a half, a 50 and a half even. The 50 is a key number here in the CFL. 49 especially is a key number. But I think that last week's game should have gone over, not the other way around. I think if you bet the under, it was probably a wrong side winner. And I think that getting a chance to bet these two teams, I don't want to pick the side in this game. You were mentioning you're going to wait to see if money comes in on one side, maybe take the field goal, take the whatever line, the way it moves. I like points here. This to me is a game where you're going to see Cam Dukes try and be something, a little bit different, throw the ball, prove himself. You're going to see whichever quarterback gets the chance to be out there. Chad Kelly is knocking on the door, whether he's reinstated, whether he's done the counseling, whatever all these protocols are. And again, I shouldn't have to keep saying this, but I will. Both of us don't condone anything that he did to get the suspension, but we all know what kind of guy he is compared to the guys that are out there for Toronto right now. When he comes back, this team will be different. So whatever these guys are going to do before he comes back, they're competing for backup jobs. They're competing to prove what kind of guy they are. If I'm being honest, I don't think Cam Dukes is going to be on the Argos in 2 years' time, when I hope we're still doing this show together every week. He's going to probably find himself somewhere else trying to make a name for himself. I think we see a lot of plays. I think we really see an exciting game here between these two teams. Shout out to Justin. Justin joining us here live on YouTube. Short week. for the Riders, he's shouting out, which is true. A short week for the Riders, bye week for Ottawa.
Yeah, one practice is all they have this week. So
my rebuttal will be this, because I'm on the other side, of course. My rebuttal is going to be how much this year has that helped. That's what my rebuttal will be. BC gets shut out, puts 0 points up. How many naps did they take in their bye week? Clearly, they weren't working hard in practice, because Winnipeg's defense just shut them out completely. So we'll see how much that impacts. But Bobby, you can tell by my enthusiasm, I like the over in the Toronto game. I'm going to hope for points. And there's nothing better than when both teams are on the field. I could give a shit less who's wins that game. Just give me some points. 3, not 7. But you know what I've learned in the CFL? Field goals can win you overs, because it's a 3-down league. If you can turn a possession that I might not have thought anything was going to happen, and you can kick a 42-yard field goal when I thought you might have been punting, it makes a difference. Those threes do add up. So
yeah. And the other team gets the ball back on the 40, right? So
yeah,
you're 2 good plays back into field goal range yourself. So you can be 20 seconds into field goal range for the other guys. So there's too many. I don't know. I don't want to be betting unders this year in the CFL, and I'm glad I haven't, because I can see it's bad enough when you get burned on a side. These last few minutes of the game where 21 points are going up after no scoring all game, it's not for me. So not good for my mental health, I would assume.
Guys, I'm posting videos, tweets. Bobby's definitely Mr. Surrey Jack on X. You can follow him. Make sure you're following him. Get those follower counts up for him, because he's at a lot of the games. He's tweeting about the games, tweeting opinions, tweeting picks. And, I would even say have notifications on for his account. He's not spamming you with tweets. You're not going crazy. When he tweets, you want to know when he is tweeting. And a lot of times he is getting you the best of the number. I'm going to let you guys know when I've got free plays out. I'm tweeting a lot of prop plays, as I've pretty much decided that prop plays are mostly just for socials for me. They have not really been making the client card too much. And for me, usually what happens is I'll tweet out immediately after, hey guys, just sent out a best bet for tonight's play or for Saturday's game. Make sure you jump on it. See all kinds of CFL handicappers out there getting numbers that I've never even knew were out there. So if you guys want to make sure you're getting the number that I'm sending out, follow me on Twitter, as well as you're going to make sure that I'm not just sending it out to Wager Talk. I'm also going to tweet it out and let you guys know when I have it. So follow Bobby. You can see his X handle. You can see mine right below me. All right. Moving on. Hamilton and Montreal, another revenge game here. 7 and the hook. I don't want to just start just creating all these theories that are just all not factual, backed by data, just out of my head here. But it seems to me 7 in the hook is kind of a buy number on the favorite. 6 in the hook has been a buy number on the dog here. I think the 7 in the hook is the books asking us to take the dog here, which I don't think I want to do. What do you think?
No, I was shocked at this opening at 7.5. I thought I'd be having to take Ticats double digits on the road and still not want to watch the game. So like that game last week was brutal. That's a straight up loss. It was a complete misread. I should have never believed in these Ticats. And like they even got a few breaks. They had the worst call I've seen in a long time, where they cough up the ball into 3-4 Alouettes, and it's ruled it hit the ground first. The whistle blew, and you couldn't be certain that those 3 Alouettes 2 inches away from the ball were going to recover it. So this could have been a lot worse. They got a lot of good breaks in the first half. This defense stinks. I don't want no part of it, and I'm glad I don't have to. This number 7.5. Once a couple of these books that don't limit players, that don't take advantage of bettors, once they have their teaser lines out, I'm at least going to try and work in a Montreal teaser, maybe with an Edmonton in the game we'll talk about next. But as for this game, 7 is where I think the line should be. 7.5. I'm shocked it's that low. I thought I'd be suckered into to Hamilton, and I'm glad I'm not.
Yeah, I think the initial reaction for these lines is, especially in the NFL, I mean, oh my goodness, I'm not just getting 7, I'm getting 7 in the hook. It's so hard for a team to win by that much. This to me, and one thing I've learned a lot recently about my handicapping, and you got to always be learning. And I think that is respecting the number, why, it's so easy to be like, yeah, I'm going to take the dog here. 7 in the hook. Are you kidding me? Like, it's hard for any team to win by double digits or to win by 8. But I think that what you saw was a Hamilton team that was in a decent spot that should have been able to hang around, should have been able to cover the number last week. I've said that home field doesn't matter. I would say right now, honestly, the two teams that I actually care about at home, despite Winnipeg's shitty ATS record, Montreal and Winnipeg, two teams that I actually value their home field.
Yeah, I got Winnipeg, Montreal, and BC as teams that have at least more than a point extra in terms of home field. So
who do we put? Who? What do we do with a teaser? Who are your top legs?
I think Edmonton would be the other leg. I don't like
yeah.
you can do riders. I'd rather have a home dog than a road dog, but
yeah.
And I don't know. I don't really want to be hoping for a middle on that game either, but yeah, I guess you can work in a teaser on any of these other three. They're all kind of lined around 1.5. I'd prefer to have the home team. I'm not buying into Trey Ford as much, but we'll get into that in a minute.
Yeah, I mean, if you're looking for a teaser leg, I think that's it. If you like some plays over the weekend, if there's a baseball game you like really quite a bit moving up, that's a big favorite. If there's a UFC, if there's a golfer matchup, a golfer top 20, we're not on here the type of people that are condoning all these parlays, but I think the Alouettes win. I know it doesn't sound like a bold statement because they're
moneyline parlay. You should be working for TSN Edge over here.
Yeah, exactly.
8-digit favorite moneyline parlay.
Yeah, but usually when they give them out, that team loses outright. So so hopefully that doesn't happen to me here. But I do think they get the job done. I think I gotta say.
Sorry, so speaking to that, like take a look what that. I don't know what the line is right now, if it's minus 300 or something, but if you can get a 6.5 point teaser on sites like BetCris or Pinnacle, and they're only charging like minus 110, which is crazy compared to what they charge in the NFL. So teasers in the CFL, some of these 6-point teasers you can get for even money. So if you equivalent of that, of instead of betting minus 300, you're getting like what, minus 280 or something like that if you work them into a teaser. So but yeah, I'd have no I'd be shocked if Hamilton keeps this close. I'd be even more shocked if they win this game outright.
Yeah, and you mentioned it already, and I don't want to put words in your mouth, but I think that we can both agree that whether Saskatchewan or Ottawa win, neither of them are winning by 8 points, probably, right? I don't.
It's unlikely.
Unlikely. It's one of those
especially
games.
Saskatchewan, I think so.
Yeah, there we go. I know. We're head to head. But I think that's a good teaser leg, no matter who's the favorite in that one overall. So that one should be interesting. All right, let's jump into BC and Edmonton. I'm curious to see what the general reputation around or perception from CFL bettors is going to be. It's going to be one of two things with Edmonton. It's going to be, well, that was a one-off. Trey Ford's first start, great plays by them, an overrated Saskatchewan team. They get the job done. Or, wow, Edmonton's back. They got their star quarterback. They got their young guy now. They're back, and they're going to get it going again. I don't know how many people are going to die on that island and say that Edmonton's back, but you've got a BC team shut out off the bye week, banged up quarterback, and you've got an Edmonton team that just got their first win. And then, of course, you've got most of, if not every book, still hesitant to post numbers here. What do you think about this one?
Yeah, I figure, well, first off, I'm doing this show today, so I sent Farhan Lalji to BC Lions practice, and he just reported that, of course, like Dolegala is starting. So we know that. I think this line should have been around a pick. I was surprised when Edmonton came out favored on this. That's a pretty big drop. Trey Ford, maybe people are buying into this, although it's not the people that would move the line. I'm not going to overreact to Trey Ford. This game was back and forth with Shea Patterson, who's 1-3 against the spread this season. Media already wondering how will you play defense against this Edmonton team with Trey Ford. Well, if I was going to look into it, I'd look to his last 4 starts at the end of last season, in which he lost all of them, including one against the Bombers backups for most of the game. So I'm not going to overreact to Trey Ford. It was a nice change of pace. I'd say there's no real difference between him and MBT in terms of value to the spread. But again, I'm not going to overreact on BC either. You've John Hodge of 3 Down Nation saying it's the most shocking CFL game he's ever seen. And part of that is 25-0 with 4 first downs for BC. Maybe he didn't watch Ottawa, Calgary the week before. But the main part of that is how much people had overreacted to the Bombers. Everybody wanted to have them last in their power rankings, and those people are not taking this seriously. You're not making any money betting against the Bombers in the last, I don't know, even all year. They've been pretty good. So apparently everybody on CFL.ca, everybody on 3 Down Nation picked the Lions. It was a big shock. They were favored by 3.5, 4 points.
Yeah.
It wasn't a big shock, right? Again, these are the people that can afford to be wrong. They're good at what they do. They're not good at trying to work in gambling into their coverage, right? We can't afford to be wrong. We were both on the Bombers. You were smart enough to wait. Instead, I just jumped on the 3.5. I think you had a 4 in your pocket as well. But I was nice enough to let the people know to take the money line on the Bombers as well. So I'm on the record as being the only person in Canada who picked the Bombers to win the most shocking game of the season. So we must be doing something right.
Yes,
so
we are.
We can't have ridiculous takes. We're going to tell you how it is. We're going to help you take off some money off these books out of the goodness of our hearts, pretty much, even though you have paid, you have people paying, but you can't afford to lose if people are paying you, right?
Of course. Yeah.
We're not on TV. We're not getting paid by sports books telling you to do these money line parlays just so you don't get banned from winning, right? So
yeah,
I've got BC, they got embarrassed. This seems like the perfect bounce back spot. I was looking forward to it until VA drops down in the middle of the third quarter there. And now you got Jake Dolegala. I think it's the biggest drop off in the league from starter to backup. This line right now, I guess I'm going to be taking BC if this goes any further. It looks like it's moving towards pick and maybe back towards BC. It might have been an overreactions a little bit here. So if I can get a positive number on the Elks, I'd be happy to work it into money, or not, you got me saying money line teaser. You got me work it into a teaser with Montreal. I think that's my most likely pairing if I'm going to take advantage of that 7.5, 8 that Montreal's laying right now.
It's definitely, the CFL, they're never short of storylines, because you've got a team that's got their first win of the season, new quarterback young quarterback, and of course they go ahead and play BC, and you'd think, what was this line going to be a few weeks ago? Well, hey, injury now. Jake Dolegala, it's not Vern Adams Jr. There's a big difference. Dolegala versus VA. And the big difference between those two guys, VA can get you down the field and score a touchdown with 4 passes. I think Dolegala might need 14 passes to get you down the field. That, to me, is a big difference. The fact is, though, gut instinct says under. Do you think I'm going to bet an under with the Elks and even with some of these receivers the BC Lions have? No way. No, thank you. I'm trying to get on a good run with my CFL. We got a good weekend. I think it's 5 straight winners. I don't want to stop. I don't want to keep going. I don't want to stop, I guess, the success. I want to keep going, like I said. And I look at this matchup overall. I think if I was going to play Edmonton, it would be first half. If I'm going to play BC, I think it's going to be full game. I think BC is the better team. Their weapons on a large scale. The more time they have time to make plays. What you mentioned about MBT, though, and I will say this and make this point clear. I think that the biggest difference with those two guys, Ford isn't the most athletic guy out there. Don't get me wrong, but MBT he's such a sniper in the pocket. If he has to move a millimeter out of the pocket, the play is dead. Trey Ford can twist around a little bit, make a few ducks and dodges, and still get the ball off. To me, that is a difference. He might not be as smart with his decision making like MBT is, but he can make something out of nothing. Whereas if MBT has to avoid a tackle, he's throwing the ball away or getting sacked. So, but we did see Trey Ford get sacked for losses when he tried to make a little bit too much out of nothing. So that to me is the game where I probably let things go. Tommy Under says Villagala is a statue. Perkins has looked awful at right tackle. That could be a problem for BC. You know, you talk about the bowling shoe. I've never heard that before until I saw you tweeted about. That might be the bowling shoe play of the week. If I take the under on that one, I might have to sit in a dark room for 2.5 hours and just not check any scores and see what happens after that one, because it's very, very hard. It's very hard to bet an under in the CFL, let alone with the BC Lions and the Edmonton Elks. All right, guys, so make sure you're following us both on X. Bobby's handle's right there. My handle's right next to me. Let's try and get 25 likes on this video. We'll try and get upwards of 250 views on YouTube. If you're watching on X, please hit the retweet button. Shout us out if we're making you guys some money, and give us a hard time if we're not. We'll try and do our best, and we appreciate all of you guys. And a huge shout out to both Tommy and Justin for these live comments here with us on YouTube. We really do appreciate you guys. Let's make some money. CFL Week 10, coast to coast. Andrew and Bobby, best of luck. We'll talk to you guys next time.